Hello there, dear listener. We hope you're enjoying this lovely discussion. If you're not already aware, this show is part of a podcast network called KWAZ Radio, a Pan-African Nationalist and Garveyite network committed to showcasing the rich and varied thoughts of African people. We have an exciting lineup of shows that we think you'll enjoy, including
the Bitter Medicine Podcast.
I think black people require too much buy-in. Like, we constantly have to sell black people on things that are beneficial to black people.
The Pro-Black Perspective Podcast.
I'm fearful that our people are not really studying how to get ahead, and we're kind of, continually staying behind.
The Harsh Reality Podcast.
To me, it don't matter. I think people are so dumbed down, it wouldn't matter what you reveal to them. They still are in the matrix. They're in the simulation. They're going to keep doing what they did. They lemmings. So to me, it don't matter, man.
The Learning Curve Podcast.
Sexual access has never given you economic empowerment. The only person who has ever been economically empowered by a sexual relationship is the wasp and his woman.
The Cathedra Cheek Show.
When we start rising up to fight for our own, I guarantee you they'll stop doing what they're doing. I guarantee you they would have let their brother go. They was waiting to see what black folks was going to do.
Brother Bakari Podcast.
Black people love to claim folks that hate them, right? They're a slave master, and they are ashamed of who they really are.
The Forecast Radio.
Like, if you pray to the same deity as, like, your enemy, and that God blesses your enemy more than you may want to reconsider who you praying to,
And Tanzan, African Mind.
Africans generally are welcoming of everyone. Sometimes, to my consternation, I think that they should be less, welcoming.
If you love our podcast network, we would be grateful if you could rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on social media, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and check out our website at www.kwazradio.com for more information. Thank you for tuning in. And now, back to the program.
All right. We're just going to try to... I really want to rush through this book. So, right now, it's pretty good. We're going to get to chapter 7. You're listening to the Pro-Black Perspective, obviously. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, share, all that good jazz. But right now, we're just going to read. Let's go. So, chapter 7 of Propaganda by Edward Bernays, written in 1928. This one's about women's activities and propaganda. Okay, so women in contemporary America have achieved the legal equality with men. This does not mean that their activities are identical with those of men. Women in the mass still have special interests and activities in addition to their economic pursuits and vocational interests. Women's most obvious influence is exerted when they are organized and armed with the weapon of propaganda. So organized and armed, they have made their influence felt on city councils, state legislatures, and national congresses. Upon executives, upon political campaigns, and upon public opinion, generally both local and national. In politics, the American women today occupy a much more that's interesting they spelled today like that. Today occupy a much more important position from the standpoint of their influence in their organized groups than from the standpoint of the leadership they have acquired in actual political positions or in actual office holdings. The professional woman politician has had, up to the present, not much influence, nor do women generally regard her as being the most important element in question. Ma Ferguson, after all, was simply a woman in the helm, a catspaw for a deposed husband. Nellie Ross, the former governor of Wyoming, is from all accounts hardly a leader of statesmanship or public opinion. If the suffrage campaign did nothing more, it showed the possibilities of propaganda to achieve certain ends. This propaganda today is being utilized by women to achieve their programs in Washington and in the States. In Washington, they are organized as the legislative committee of 14 women's organizations, including the League of Women Voters, the Young Women's Christian Association, the Women's Christian Temperance Union, the Federation of Women's Clubs, etc. These organizations map out a legislative program and then use the modern technique of propaganda to make this legislative program actually pass into the law of the land. Their accomplishments in the fields are various. They can justifiably take credit for much welfare legislation. The 8-hour day for women is theirs. Okay, that's interesting. So apparently, because sometimes, who knows, everybody takes credit for the 8-hour day. Anyway, so everybody takes credit for the 8-hour day. This guy is saying that, see, the workers made the 8-hour day possible. Liberals made it. This guy is saying women, and I'm guessing he means white women, obviously, but he's like, women actually gave the 8-hour day. It's pretty interesting. Undoubtedly, prohibition and its enforcement are theirs, if they can be considered an accomplishment. Damn, okay. That's a haterade right there. So is the Shepard-Towner bill, which stipulates support by the central government of maternity welfare in the state governments. Okay, not bad. This bill would not have passed had it not been for the political prescience and sagacity of women like Mrs. Vanderlip and Mrs. Mitchell. The federal measures endorsed at the first convention of the National League of Women Voters typify social welfare activities of women's organizations. Now, of course, I should say this about the 8-hour day thing. Workers, could have been in league with the women, And of course, women could be workers as well, but, and of course, I should also say that, obviously, black people were present, but, women might have been a pretty dominant endorsement, because, of course, regardless of what population you look at, they're roughly 50% of the population, So anyway, so the federal measures endorsed at the first convention of the National League of Women Voters typifies social welfare activities of women's organization. These cover such broad interests as child welfare, education, the home and high prices, women in gainful occupations, public health and morals, independent citizenship for married women, and others. To propagandize these principles, the National League of Women Voters had published all types of literature such as bulletins, calendars, elections information, has held a correspondence course on government, and conducted demonstration classes in citizenship schools. Possibly the effectiveness of women's organization in American politics today is due to two things. First, the training of professional class of executive secretaries or legislative secretaries during the suffrage campaigns, where every device known to the propagandists had to be used to regiment a recalcitrant majority. Secondly, the routing over into peacetime activities of the many prominent women who were in the suffrage campaigns and who also devoted themselves to the important drives and mass influence movements during the war. Such women as Mrs. Frank Vanderlip, Alice Amos Winter, Mrs. Henry Moskowitz, right? Mrs. Florence Kelly, Mrs. John Blair, Mrs. O.H.P. Delmont, Doris Stevens, Alice Paul come to mind. Now, of course, all these people are, European, all of them, right? If I have seemed to concentrate on the accomplishment of women in politics, it is because they afford a particularly striking example of intelligent use of the new propaganda to secure attention and acceptance of minority ideas. It is perhaps curiously appropriate that the latest recruits to the political arena should recognize and make use of the newest weapons of persuasion to offset any lack of experience with what is somewhat euphemistically termed practical politics. As an example of this new technique, some years ago, the Consumers Committee of Women fighting the American valuation tariff rented an empty store on 57th Street in New York and set up an exhibit of merchandise tagging each item with the current price and the price it would cost if the tariff went through. Hundreds of visitors to the shop rallied to the cause of the committee, right? So again, and that's the thing, it's like, sometimes having money is important too. These political campaigns are not cheap. And this is why politicians can be bought, because political campaigns are not cheap. You need propaganda. You need to, let's say, rent an empty store on 57th Street. You need to buy merchandise and then tag them with prices. You can't just have drawings. You need to do these kind of things. But there are also non-political fields in which women can make and have made their influence felt for social ends, and in which they have utilized the principle of group leadership in attaining the desired objective. In the General Federation of Women's Clubs, there are 13,000 clubs. Broadly classified, they include civic and city clubs, mothers and housemakers clubs, cultural clubs devoted to art, music, or literature, business and professional women's clubs, and general women's clubs, which may embrace either civic or community phrases, or combine some of the other activities listed. The women's club is generally effective on behalf of health education, in furthering appreciation of the fine arts, in sponsoring legislation that affects the welfare of women and children, in playground development and park improvement, in raising standards of social or political morality, in homemaking and home economics, education, and the like. In these fields, the Women's Club concerns itself with efforts that are not ordinarily covered by existing agencies, and often both initiates and helps to further movements for the good of the community. So this is actually pretty positive. This is propaganda in itself. I remember I had a podcast about women, and I was like, about white women, and I was like, ugh, like what do white women really do? And I mean, this guy makes it seem like white women, do something, so it's okay, right? A club interested principally in homemaking and the practical arts can sponsor a cooking school for young brides and others. Look at that. This is like women's initiation thing, a cooking school. I would tell you guys about the story of a sister I bumped into. Now she was kind of a butterface, honestly, but like a butterface, right? Anyway, but I go to her, I'm walking by her, and I was like, "Where are you going?" Right? Because again, she was a butterface, right? So she said, I say, "Where are you going?" And she goes, because I said, "Where are you going?" She goes, "I'm going to the Chinese store." And I said, "What are you going to get at the Chinese restaurant?" She goes, "I'm going to get some, I think like chicken noodle soup, right, from the Chinese food restaurant because her mother's sick." So I said, "Okay, well, your mother's sick, so why don't you just make the chicken soup, right? Why don't you just make the chicken soup?" And she goes, "Well, I don't know how to do that." And I'm thinking to myself, I mean, chicken noodle soup is like, you just got to boil the chicken with the noodles. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, you just got to boil the chicken with the noodles. It's not even, it's not a real complicated thing, but sure enough, she goes to the Chinese restaurant, and it's like, that's what people are not doing. Now, granted, here's another trouble too. So even in Africa, where young women are getting initiated, learning how to cook, learning how to dance, learning how to have sex, all that kind of stuff, right? Even in Africa, it's for young brides. Okay? Or it's for brides. Okay? Like, the schools are for brides. And the trouble with our community is that a lot of people are not getting married. A lot of people are not ready for marriage. I'll put it that way. But anyway, we're gonna just but that's pretty interesting because, again, these are things that can be done that aren't being done. So he says, an example of the keen interest of women in this field of education is a cooking school recently conducted by the New York Herald Tribune, which held its classes in Carnegie Hall, seating almost 3,000 persons. For the several days of the cooking school, the hall was filled to capacity, rivaling the drawing power of a McCormack or a Paderewski, and refuting most dramatically the idea that women in large cities are not interested in housewifery. So again, this is not written recently, okay? It's not written recently, but you see that the idea that women in large cities are not interested in housewifery was an idea. Okay? Oh, a lot of the social problems that black people are having are problems they're having because they're in modern Western cities. Okay? People in villages do not have your problems. That problem you have with the internet and blah, blah, blah is really not a universal human problem. It's a problem you have with being in a certain group on the internet. Like if you're into anime, for instance, right? Like, for instance, I got a brother. He's into anime. He doesn't know anything about AGOS. Nothing. Why would he? I got a sister who's interested in not a sister, but like not a real sister, like a sister, right? I got a sister who's interested in opera music. She doesn't know anything about Tariq Nasheed. She doesn't know who that is. But it's because you're interested in it that people within your interest group and you are at odds. That's it. It's not a real human. It's really like all problems are local. They always have been and they always will be. Well, mine is no. Some problems aren't local, but yeah, some problems could be global, but you know, it is what it is. Sorry, a movement for the serving of milk in public schools or the establishment of a baby health station at the Department of Health will be an effort close to the heart of a club devoted to the interests of mothers and child welfare. A music club can broaden its sphere and be of service to the community by cooperating with a local radio station and arranging better musical programs. Fighting bad music can be as militant a campaign and martial as varied resources as any political battle. So again, fighting bad music. You know, a lot of times you gotta realize there's nothing new under the sun. Right? And sometimes you might be approaching a problem that you think is unique to you that people have already solved. Other people have already solved. Basically, white people had bad music. And then they fought it. And now you got black music and you're like, that's my culture. There's a difference. Alright, so an art club can be active in securing loan exhibitions for its city. And I'm not saying, again, I'm not trying to say white people are, good or bad. I'm just saying that humans approach problems differently. Okay? Humans approach problems differently, and because they do, it is what it is. So he says, look, an art club can be active in securing loan exhibitions for its city. It can also arrange traveling exhibits of the artwork of its members or show the artwork of schools or universities. A literary club may step out of its charmed circle of lectures and literary lions and take a definite part of the educational life of the community. It can sponsor, for instance, a competition in the public school for the best essay on the history of the city and on the life of its most famous son. Now, again, look at this. Again, sometimes you got to look at what others are doing and think to yourself, how can I do this? How can I, where is this, how can this be useful? So, check this out. You can get a college scholarship for $500. Or a college scholarship for $5,000. Okay? It depends on how deep your pockets are and, how many people you got to sponsor it. And you could say, look, best essay on Marcus Garvey. Or if you have a lot of money, I don't know. Let's say you have $15,000, right, as a group. Okay? The 3 best essays on Marcus Garvey, okay, they get $5,000 each. Okay? Now you have young people now you have, let's say, 500 young people, right? 500 young black people, hopefully black, I don't know, but 500 young black people reading up on Marcus Garvey. Okay? Reading up on Marcus Garvey. You say, hey, you must use this Garvey book, right? You must use Message to the People. You must use this. You must use that. Whatever, right? 500 young black people reading these essays. And maybe not even they might just do it on ChatGPT. Who knows, right? But regardless, 500 of them reading. You obviously run it by the AI or whatever. And then how many 600, 700 parents go onto your website to check out, the rules and all that kind of stuff and what else you do and what else you're interested in, who's the past winners and all that kind of stuff. Point is, you get an opportunity, let's say we were doing it, whatever. You get an opportunity to read this essay on a public setting, You could even be like, hey, Oni, I want you to read these or judge these and blah, blah, blah. Who knows? Look, the point is this, right? You get 500 people. You give kids $15,000, $5,000 each, which is good money when you're a kid. Okay? And low key, it's good money. Low key, right? You give them the money. You got 500 kids. Not all of them get money, which is fine. All of them read Garvey, more or less. Even if they use AI, all of them read Garvey in some capacity. Okay? You could win this way. And this is what these white folk were doing. I'm telling you, sometimes you gotta look at, when you read a book, you just gotta peep game. Sometimes people slip you game. They have no intention. They don't know who you are. They're dead. You know what I'm saying? You weren't alive. You weren't even, your grandparents weren't even alive when they wrote this stuff. Okay? 1928, I don't know if your grandparents were alive. I'm not saying they weren't, but it's very possible they weren't. Right? Either way, they're slipping game. And the thing is this, they're slipping game to their own people, and you could catch the game if you decide to read between the lines. So that idea of, oh yeah, here's a Garvey essay competition, that's good. Even if you do that idea among adults, it's still good. Okay? Matter of fact, I'm thinking to myself, you know what? Maybe I might do that, right? I might do that. I might do that. I might be in Africa and I say, look, you know what, guys? I want to give away 200. I want to give away $100, right? Again, it's not $5,000, whatever. I want to give away $100. Person who writes the best damn essay gets it, and they're gonna write it on this topic, this book, this one, and so forth. And of course, it just cost me $100. But guess what? I done got people reading about Nkrumah, Nyere, Garvey. Shit, I might got people reading my own book. But anyway, that is what it is. Alright, so over and above the particular object for which the Women's Club may have been constituted, it commonly stands ready to initiate or help any movement which has for its object a distinct public good in the community. More important, it constitutes an organized channel through which women can make themselves felt as a definite part of public opinion. Any movement which so women, he's praising women, which is okay. I don't know. Yeah, it's okay. Just as women supplement men in private life, so they will supplement men in public life by concentrating their organized effort on those objects which men are likely to ignore. There is a tremendous field for women as active protagonists of new ideas and new methods of political and social housekeeping. When organized and conscious of their power to influence their surrounding, women can use their newly acquired freedom in a great many ways to mold the world into a better place to live in. So that was actually the entirety of it, which was actually pretty good. Although, look here. If he wrote black women, black men, black women, black women, black women, some of us wouldn't even liked it. Which is weird. Because this whole thing is just a praise song for white women. But because he didn't say black women, some of us read this and say, you know what? All right. Like this is a good opinion. Oh, women help with this, so on and so forth. But if he said black women, a lot of black men, I'll be honest, would take an issue with this. Like if a black man wrote this and he just said black women, black women may have, commonly initiate or help any movement which has its object a distinct public good of the community. More importantly, because, which black women can make themselves felt as a definite part of the black community. Just as black women supplement black men in private life, they'll supplement black men in public life by concerning their efforts on the objects, blah, blah, blah. There's on the objects that black men are likely to ignore. If for some reason, and it reminds me of my brother Bakari, who tells us, why are we as men competing with women? Like, honestly, praising your women in public is a good damn thing, I think. I think that's a good damn thing. Now, do I think this fits the white woman? No. I don't. But, again, that's a part of propaganda, too. Tell the world you have the best women. And then make your women feel good. Duh. Like, that's what it's like sex. What are you doing that for? Are you doing it just to feel good, or are you trying to do it to make her feel good too? Like just basically, expand your horizon. But that's pretty much it. That was a really short chapter. I think I'm going to read another chapter, but I'm not going to read it on this video. So you guys subscribe, share, and if you want more content like this, be sure to. Let me just make sure you guys can hear me. I don't even know if you can. But if you like more content like this, just make sure you guys subscribe and stay tuned. And will that. Let me just see if you guys can actually hear me.
Stop doing what they doing. I guarantee.
I was like, ugh. Yeah, okay. All right, then. Peace, fam. Appreciate your time. And Shemim Hotep. Oh, yeah, sorry. Let me show you guys my book. So in case you guys are wondering, what do? I'm an author. I write Uangalifu. It's my magnus opus. Book of Power, my second favorite. Then you got the Pro-Black Compendium. You got Zubiri. I like Zubiri a lot. And you got this children's book, I Can Be a Nation Builder. So make sure you guys check out the 5. And I think these are my 5 last books. Somebody said that you should always have 10 books on you. I don't think I'm going to do 10. I think I'm stopping here. But that's pretty much it, though. Thanks, everybody, for your time. And until next time, Shemim Hotep, Uncle Jas, and Neb Neb. Amen. Ma'at. Dua. Necher.